I'd like to say I met her under ordinary circumstances, but nothing about the first time I saw Anna felt ordinary. It was late afternoon, the kind of pale gold light that makes dust float in the air like slow-moving fireflies. I was standing in my friend Liam's kitchen, waiting for him to grab something from upstairs, when she walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there. Or maybe she was, but I wasn't supposed to notice her the way I did. Anna, Liam's mom, mid-40s, hair loosely tied back, wearing an oversized sweater like she'd just thrown it on over whatever she'd been doing. She looked tired in a way that made her more beautiful, like she'd been busy all day, but still carried herself with that quiet, unthinking elegance some people are just born with. She didn't look at me right away. She moved past me toward the counter, poured herself coffee from the pot, and only then glanced up. Her eyes were warm brown, but sharper than I expected, like they could cut right through the polite surface of a conversation. "You're Daniel, right?" she said. "Yeah," I nodded. "We've met once, I think." Her smile was small, but stayed longer than it needed to. "You've grown since then." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just half laughed, shifting my weight. She seemed to notice my awkwardness, and her mouth tilted like she was trying not to laugh at me. It was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the slow drip of the coffee maker. Liam was still upstairs. "You take sugar?" she asked, holding the jar without waiting for my answer. "Oh yeah? Thanks." Our fingers brushed as she handed me the mug. It shouldn't have mattered. It was nothing, really, but the heat of her skin stayed longer than the mug's warmth. She didn't pull away quickly. Neither did I. "You're at the university now?" she asked. First year. Studying architecture." "That suits you," she said, taking a sip of her own coffee. Then, after a pause, "You notice things. Most people don't." I should have just smiled and let it go, but the way she said it, like it was a secret only we shared. Liam's footsteps pounded down the stairs, and the moment between us snapped like a thread pulled too tight. He came in, tossed me my jacket, and started talking about where we were going. Anna didn't say anything, just rinsed her cup, set it upside down in the rack. But before we left, she looked over her shoulder at me, not at Liam. It was brief, but there was something in that look. 2 weeks later, I was back in that kitchen. Liam had gone to grab his phone, and it was just me and her again. The sweater was different, the light was softer, but her eyes, they were exactly the same. She stepped closer this time, like she wasn't going to waste the few minutes we had. "Daniel," she said quietly, "can I give you some advice?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Her gaze didn't waver. "Sometimes you say yes, or you walk away forever." I felt my heartbeat in my throat. I wanted to ask what she meant, but the sound of a phone buzzing cut through the air. She glanced at the counter. It was hers, and something in her expression shifted. She reached for it. I stepped forward without thinking, and then she looked up at me again. The screen lit her face from below. Her eyes didn't move from mine, and she said, "It's him." I didn't ask who him was. I didn't need to. The way her jaw tightened, the way she let the phone screen fade to black without answering, told me enough. Someone she wasn't ready to talk about, maybe someone she couldn't. She slipped the phone into her sweater pocket, smoothed her hair, and gave me a smile that looked like it was stitched together at the last second. "Daniel, do you need a ride home?" she asked, as if that would erase the last 30 seconds. "No," I said quickly. "It's fine." But my mind wasn't fine. Not with her words still stuck in my head. Say yes, or walk away forever. Later, when Liam and I were walking to the bus stop, I asked without asking, "Your mom, does she live alone?" He shook his head. "Nah, my stepdad's around. Kinda. He's always working overseas." "What?" I mumbled something about nothing. But the truth was, the absence of a man in that house explained some things, and made others worse. The next time I saw her, I was there to help Liam move some boxes to the attic. He got distracted with a phone call, leaving me halfway up the stairs with a heavy cardboard box. I heard her voice below. "You shouldn't be lifting that yourself," she said, already stepping up to take one side. We carried it together, the box balanced awkwardly between us, our hands almost brushing over the worn cardboard edge. I could smell her shampoo, something faintly floral, clean but not trying to be. In the attic, she set the box down and leaned against the wall, catching her breath. I used to be able to carry 2 of those without blinking, she said with a self-conscious laugh. I leaned against the opposite wall. You still could. Her eyes narrowed slightly, like she was deciding whether to take that as a compliment or a lie. I'm not 20 anymore, Daniel. I almost told her that was the point, that I didn't notice her despite her age, but because of it. But I swallowed the words. She glanced around the dusty attic. When Liam's father left, I promised myself I'd never. She stopped mid-sentence, shaking her head. Never mind. That was the first time she'd said something about her past without disguising it. I wanted to ask more, but the look on her face, half guarded, half regret, kept me still. We stood there for a long moment, the quiet pressing in. She shifted, about to move toward the stairs, when a beam of late afternoon light came through the attic window, catching in her hair. She noticed me looking. Daniel, she said softly, don't. Don't what? Her gaze didn't drop. Make this harder. I didn't know what to say, but when we carried the last box down together, her fingers brushed mine, deliberately this time, and she didn't move them right away. It happened on a rainy Thursday. I hadn't planned to see her. Liam had invited me over to study before a group project meeting, but when I got there, his car was gone. Anna opened the door. Her sweater sleeves were pushed up, a faint line of flour on her cheek. He didn't tell you? She asked. He's running late. Traffic. I should have left. I told myself I would. Instead, I stepped inside, shaking the water from my hair. I was baking, she said, motioning toward the kitchen. Stay until he's back? I nodded. Too quickly. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and butter. She moved easily between counter and oven, and I found myself leaning against the doorframe, just watching. You're staring, she said without looking up. Sorry. She didn't tell me to stop. We talked, light things like classes and recipes. But there were pauses, those long moments where the rain seemed louder than our words. I caught her glancing at me, then pretending she hadn't. When she slid the tray from the oven, she brushed too close, her arm grazing mine. My pulse jumped. Then, footsteps on the porch. Anna's face changed instantly. She set the tray down, wiped her hands, and stepped back just as the door opened. Her husband. I'd never met him, but I knew it was him from the way she straightened her posture, like she was switching on a different version of herself. He was taller than I expected, suit jacket damp from the rain. Daniel, right? He said, his handshake firm. Liam mentioned you. Anna busied herself with coffee, barely speaking, and I realized something. Whatever was between us, she hid it well. Too well. He stayed only a few minutes, grabbing papers from the study before heading out again, muttering about a late flight. When the door closed, the air felt charged, heavy. Anna didn't move for a moment. Then she turned to me. You need to be careful, she said quietly. Of what? Of me. I stepped forward before I thought about it. Why? Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed steady. Because this, whatever's starting here, it's not supposed to happen. I wanted to tell her it already was happening. But before I could, a drop of icing slid from the spatula she was holding, landing on her wrist. Without thinking, I reached out and brushed it away with my thumb. Her breath caught. The sound of tires crunching on the wet driveway broke it. Liam was home. We both stepped back, but too late. Our eyes were still locked when he walked in, shaking off his jacket. He looked between us. Did I interrupt something? Anna's voice was calm. No, just cookies. But the way she picked up the spatula with a trembling hand told me she was lying. To him, and maybe to herself. It happened on a rainy Thursday. I hadn't planned to see her. Liam had invited me over to study before a group project meeting, but when I got there, his car was gone. Anna opened the door. Her sweater sleeves were pushed up, a faint line of flour on her cheek. He didn't tell you? She asked. He's running late. Traffic. I should have left. I told myself I would. Instead, I stepped inside, shaking the water from my hair. I was baking, she said, motioning toward the kitchen. Stay until he's back? I nodded. Too quickly. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and butter. She moved easily between counter and oven, and I found myself leaning against the doorframe, just watching. You're staring, she said without looking up. Sorry. She didn't tell me to stop. We talked, light things like classes and recipes. But there were pauses, those long moments where the rain seemed louder than our words. I caught her glancing at me, then pretending she hadn't. When she slid the tray from the oven, she brushed too close, her arm grazing mine. My pulse jumped. Then, footsteps on the porch. Anna's face changed instantly. She set the tray down, wiped her hands, and stepped back just as the door opened. Her husband. I'd never met him, but I knew it was him from the way she straightened her posture, like she was switching on a different version of herself. He was taller than I expected, suit jacket damp from the rain. Daniel, right? He said, his handshake firm. Liam mentioned you. Anna busied herself with coffee, barely speaking, and I realized something. Whatever was between us, she hid it well. Too well. He stayed only a few minutes, grabbing papers from the study before heading out again, muttering about a late flight. When the door closed, the air felt charged, heavy. Anna didn't move for a moment. Then she turned to me. You need to be careful, she said quietly. Of what? Of me. I stepped forward before I thought about it. Why? Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed steady. Because this, whatever's starting here, it's not supposed to happen. I wanted to tell her it already was happening. But before I could, a drop of icing slid from the spatula she was holding, landing on her wrist. Without thinking, I reached out and brushed it away with my thumb. Her breath caught. The sound of tires crunching on the wet driveway broke it. Liam was home. We both stepped back, but too late. Our eyes were still locked when he walked in, shaking off his jacket. He looked between us. Did I interrupt something? Anna's voice was calm. No, just cookies. But the way she picked up the spatula with a trembling hand told me she was lying. To him, and maybe to herself. It was supposed to be a casual evening, movie at Liam's, takeout containers scattered across the coffee table. But halfway through the film, Liam got a call and ducked out, mumbling about just 10 minutes. That left me and Anna on opposite ends of the couch. The TV light flickered over her face, softening the edges, making her look younger and older at the same time. She sat with her legs tucked under her, a blanket draped over her lap. I kept pretending to watch the screen, but my attention was nowhere near it. Is he coming back soon? I asked, voice low. She didn't answer right away. Does it matter? That landed heavier than I expected. Shouldn't it? Her gaze flicked to mine, then down to the blanket. You're too young to understand how quickly things can fall apart. I'm not a kid, Anna. The way her name sounded in the quiet made her flinch, just slightly. No, but you're still. She stopped, shaking her head like she'd almost said too much. I leaned forward. Still what? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Still untouched by the kind of mistakes that don't go away. We sat in that charged silence, the sound of the movie nothing but background hum. My pulse was loud in my ears. You think this is a mistake? I asked. Her eyes lifted to mine, and for the first time, she didn't look away. I think about it too much for it to be nothing. That admission made something shift in me. Heat, relief, fear all tangled together. Then stop pretending it's not there. Her breath caught, and she pulled the blanket tighter around herself, like armor. And if I can't stop, we were leaning toward each other without meaning to, the space between us shrinking. I could see the faint tremor in her hands, the way her lips parted just enough. A car horn outside made us both flinch, but neither of us moved back. You don't know what you're doing, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Yeah, I do. Her fingers gripped the edge of the blanket so hard her knuckles whitened. Daniel, she said my name like it was the only thing keeping her steady. I wanted to close the last inch between us, to end the waiting that had been building for weeks. Her eyes dropped to my mouth for the briefest second, then back up. The world felt narrowed to that single moment, like everything else had gone silent. And then, the front door clicked. Liam's voice called out from the hallway. We didn't move, not right away. But when we did, she shifted to the far end of the couch, pulling the blanket tighter, breathing faster than she should have been. I sat back, heart still hammering, knowing we'd just stepped onto a line we couldn't pretend wasn't there anymore. 2 days passed without seeing her. I told myself it was better. Space might cool whatever was happening between us. But then Liam texted, "Come by. Mom made dinner." I almost didn't go. Almost. When I arrived, The house smelled like rosemary and garlic. Anna was at the stove, her hair loose for once, wearing a dark green dress that looked nothing like her usual oversized sweaters. She smiled when she saw me, small, but there. Liam was in the dining room setting plates. Mom went all out, he said. You'd think we had company or something. We sat, talked, ate. Normal things. Too normal. The kind of evening where every glance across the table feels like a hidden message. After dessert, Liam went upstairs to grab something. I stayed at the table while Anna began clearing plates. I stood to help, but when I reached for one, my hand closed over hers. She froze. We didn't speak, but we didn't move apart either. It was the kind of stillness that feels louder than noise. And then, footsteps. Not Liam's. From the hallway, a voice. So this is him. Her husband. I hadn't even heard the door. He stood there, no jacket, tie loosened, eyes taking in the scene. The plates, the space between us that wasn't quite enough. Anna's voice was steady. You're early. Not early, he said. Just in time to hear everything. My stomach dropped. Hear what? He stepped closer, gaze shifting between us. The attic. Last week. Thin walls, you know. Anna's face went pale. She opened her mouth, closed it. My mind flashed back. Our conversation in the attic, her near confession. Had he been home? Listening? He gave a dry laugh. Relax, kid. I don't care about feelings. His emphasis was deliberate. What I care about is what happens next. Anna's jaw tightened. Nothing happens next. That's not what it sounded like. He looked at me now, eyes cold. Here's what you need to understand. Walk away, and we never mention this again. Stay, and I make sure it costs you both more than you can imagine. It wasn't a threat in volume, but in precision. I didn't answer. Couldn't. He glanced at Anna one last time, then turned and left through the back door, the sound of it shutting far too calm for what had just happened. The silence afterward was suffocating. Anna stood there, her hands trembling so slightly I almost missed it. You should go, she said, not meeting my eyes. Anna, please, Daniel. Just go. I wanted to argue, to tell her I wasn't scared off that easily, but there was something in her voice, something final, that rooted me in place. When I finally stepped outside into the cold air, my phone buzzed with a new message. From her. Just 2 words, don't come back. I stayed away for a week. No texts. No accidental visits. I thought maybe space would make her words, don't come back, feel less like a blade. It didn't. Then one night, just past 11, my phone lit up with her name. No message, just a call. Daniel, she said, her voice low, rushed. Can you come? I didn't ask why. 10 minutes later, I was standing on her porch, heart pounding. She opened the door fast, pulling me inside before I could even speak. The house was dim, only the kitchen light on. He's gone, she said. I hesitated. Gone where? Back overseas. Early flight. We didn't talk. She was wringing her hands, eyes restless. I didn't want you to hear this from him. Hear what? She took a breath, then let it out like it hurt. He thinks I've already made a choice. And her eyes met mine. I haven't. Not yet. The space between us shrank without either of us moving. I could feel the pull, the heat, the question hanging in the air. I told you to stay away, she said. You didn't mean it. Her lips parted, but no words came. She turned, walking to the counter, gripping it like it was the only thing holding her upright. Daniel, if I choose you, I lose everything else. My marriage, my son's trust. What if you lose yourself if you don't? That stopped her. She glanced over her shoulder at me, eyes sharp but shining. You think this is easy? No, I said. But I think about you every damn day. And if that's not supposed to matter, then tell me right now, and I'll walk out that door. Silence. She faced me fully now, shoulders tense. You're too young to throw yourself into something that will burn us both. Maybe, but you're too smart to pretend you don't want it. Her breath hitched. She stepped toward me, one slow pace at a time, until we were close enough for the air to feel electric. This is the part, she whispered, where I'm supposed to say no. Then don't. Her hand lifted like she might touch my face, then hovered in the air, trembling. I could see the fight in her, the fear and the want crashing together. For a long, suspended moment, I thought she'd pull away. Instead, Her fingers brushed my jaw, light as a breath. It was enough. Enough to know the line we'd been circling for weeks had been crossed, whether we named it or not. She dropped her hand suddenly, stepping back. Go. Before I make this impossible to undo. I didn't move. She met my eyes, a small, broken smile tugging at her lips. Daniel, whatever happens next, we can't go back. I left then, but every step away felt like walking onward something I could not yet see 3 weeks. That's how long it took before I saw her again. It wasn't planned. I was cutting through the park on my way back from campus when I spotted her, sitting on a bench under a bare tree, a thermos in her hands, hair pulled back against the wind. For a second, I thought about walking past, pretending not to see her. But she looked up before I could decide. Daniel, she said. No surprise in her voice, no smile either. I sat down beside her. The air was sharp with winter, our breath visible. You didn't call, I said. I wanted to, she admitted. I didn't know if I should. We watched a group of kids kick a ball across the frosted grass. It was easier than looking at each other. Finally, she spoke. He knows it's over. He didn't ask why, but I think he knows. And Liam. Her hands tightened around the thermos. Not yet. I'm not ready for that conversation. There was so much I wanted to say, about how I'd waited, about how I'd thought of her every night. But what came out was, you look tired. She gave a soft laugh. I am tired, but it's not the bad kind. Silence stretched between us, not tense this time, just full. Do you remember, she said slowly, what I told you that first week? About saying yes or walking away forever. Yeah. Her eyes found mine. I wasn't just talking to you. It hit me then. She'd been talking to herself all along, too afraid to make a choice she couldn't undo. So, I said, leaning a little closer, is this the part where you say yes? Her smile was small, careful. It's the part where I stopped saying no. I reached for her hand. She let me take it, our fingers fitting together like we'd been doing it for years instead of stealing seconds in kitchens and attics. This isn't going to be simple, she warned. I don't need simple, I said. I just need you to stop pretending we're not already in it. For the first time, there was no hesitation in her touch. No pulling away. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and the cold didn't seem to matter anymore. We didn't talk about the future, not yet. We just sat there, the world moving around us, knowing that whatever came next, we'd stepped over the line together. And somewhere, under all the noise of what it might cost, there was relief. Relief that we'd stopped circling. Relief that, finally, one of us had said yes.